This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 278.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, Ramsey Majaba. I forgot what I was about to say for a second, but I got it back. Anyways, so I am not very good at wishing people Merry Christmas or Happy New Year because I tend to forget. But this week, it's easy because last episode came out on Christmas Day. This episode will come out on New Year's Day. So Happy New Year. I hope 2024 will bring you lots of whatever it is that you're looking for. And if you're listening to this on New Year's Day, thank you for investing your time with me. I really appreciate that. And my guest for today would appreciate that as well. My guest, his name is Jeff Dryall, and one thing that we tend to do is he will talk about his career journey, but the one thing that I like to focus on is he's gotten laid off more than anyone else that I've talked to. And every time he got laid off, he would actually take the time, or maybe while he was still working, before he got laid off, he would figure out, like, this could be my next project. As in, he's interested in this project, he's interested in this technology. And he pursues that when he's forced to pursue it, right? When he's laid off. I loved his journey. He's a SE leader currently at ScalePad. He's been doing that for a while. I hope you get something out of it because we're going to discuss his background in sales, going into sales engineering, and becoming an SE leader. So let's just jump into the show. Mr. Dryall, how are you doing?
Not too bad. Yourself?
I'm doing good. As I mentioned earlier, surviving. I think we should all aspire to just barely surviving. So welcome to the show. This is your first time here.
Yes.
So for those who don't know you, who are you and what do you do?
Who are you and what do you do? My name is Jeff Dryall. I'm a solutions engineering manager for a SaaS company called ScalePad. I've got a team of 6 of us now and looking to grow. My passion has been sales engineering for, I don't know, going on 12, 13 years, something like that. And all my experience is specifically based in the small to medium business channel market, which is kind of a unique play. So yeah, that's who I am.
I think that's how we met. I said something that you disagreed with, and then we figured out that it's because you're talking about SMB and I'm talking about enterprise.
Yeah, the answer was it depends in the end.
It's the answer. The first time I met a senior SE, I was like a month into my job. He's like, the answer is always it depends. No, that's what we should put on our resume. It depends. What do you do? It depends. What do you need me to do? Okay, so how did you get to be an SE manager at an SM, selling into SMBs? Tell me your story.
Yeah, it's a long one. I'm pushing over 20 odd years in this space. My first role was actually in computer retail. There was a chain called Computer City back in the 90s, and I got hired as a temporary software sales rep for the Christmas holiday. And the reason why I got the job to begin with is because I always just kind of tinkered with computers, man. I built my own 486. I tossed my own overdrive chip in there, and back when you had to do math and move jumpers around to upgrade your computers, and not everything was color coded or fit in one place. So I just always kind of had like a natural nerd affinity for tech and playing computer games back in even from the early 90s, maybe even late 80s on my VIC-20. So got a job in computer retail is where it started, and then I actually did really well at that and moved into a supervisor role where I was running the counter, the upgrades and technical services counter. I ended up very quickly becoming the central go-to guy for everything in the entire store for all the staff, all the sales reps, and most notably the business sales department as well. So when they would have clients in and needed to understand, printers and video cards and compatibility and applications and right across the board to signing in machines for service and being able to understand what could possibly be wrong with it when I write up the ticket and hand it to the guys in the back. Kind of started from there. The company got bought and sold a couple of times. They were Tandy Corporation originally, and ended up laying off a bunch of staff, myself included. At which point I discovered this market, this part of the market called, basically computer distribution. So companies back then like Maricel, now known as Synex, TD, Ingram Micro, all these multi-billion-dollar computer distributors. It was fun for me to figure out where are these stores getting their equipment from? Where do all these computers come from? So I ended up getting a phone jockey job, a sales job, I guess you could call it, back in the early 2000s in distribution. And that went well for a few years until we got bought out again, and actually again got laid off, and which sort of drove my interest in who are these manufacturers, who are these vendors, who are these software developers, where are these products and technologies coming from, and managed to get another sales job, a very high-end sales job at a company called Net Integration Technologies, and they were the founders of a Linux-based alternative to Microsoft's Small Business Server at the time, which was really cool. And the notable thing about that tech was how the operating system, all of about 40 megs, sat on an IDE, sat on a memory chip that went right into the IDE port on the motherboard. So it was really advanced, cool stuff when you compared it to something like, a compact ProLiant small business server, trying to handle 20, 25, 50 clients connected to it locally within an office. So this is a great alternative. They ended up getting bought out by IBM, again, laid off. And then after that, discovered the world of managed services, which actually started to become very, very commonplace in, I'd say, the mid-aughts, around the 2006, 2007 range. A lot of these IT service providers that were servicing the small to medium business market, we're slowly discovering that is a bit of a loss leader and a break fix model, right? You just couldn't really maintain margins and company valuation by waiting for stuff to break. So the whole move of managed services and the recurring business model, the recurring revenue model, and actually getting paid when equipment works instead of getting paid when stuff breaks, sort of spawned the new generation of things like remote monitoring and management software platforms and professional services automation tool sets designed specifically for IT service providers. So again, this is all SMB, right? This is all mid-market stuff, not enterprise. I'm not talking about things like SolarWinds and Silverback. I'm talking more the smaller, high transactional side of things. So I joined a company called Level Platforms. And this is where I finally went from sales to solutions engineering, because I was always a very good sales rep in tech. I would often be able to handle just about any depth of technical conversation to a degree, but found that I really had a love for actually being that kind of helping hand in moving the needle forward and acting as that consummate professional, the guy that has to know the things in order to move the sale forward. So my boss at the time gave me an opportunity and moved me into a sales engineering role at that company. So I was very much a sales guy first, but with an underlying foundation of technical understanding that really helped me contribute to that role. And from there, it pretty much snowballed. So I've now been I was a solutions engineer at Level Platforms for a few years until we got bought out again by AVG Technologies, laid off yet again. It's a recurring theme. I know. It's and then after that, a couple of short stints at a couple of other channel vendors in a solution engineering or even a product marketing role. I experienced a little bit as well. And then my last notable role before ScalePad was I worked for a company called Datto for about 6 years as a senior solutions engineer for their Datto RMM tool. And that's where I kind of learned the ropes for real. I was on a team of 40 guys, and they got bought out by a company called Kaseya, and a lot of things changed there, and it was actually my time to move on, and the timing was perfect. So about a little more than a year ago, I joined ScalePad as the first of two solutions engineers, the first time the company had ever had solution engineers. Myself and my good friend Tulsi, my right-hand man, were hired. Fast forward to April earlier this year, they promoted me to solution engineering manager, and I now run a team of 6 solutions engineers here at ScalePad, and have enjoyed the opportunity to essentially build the department from nothing and define a mission and a company objective and all the processes, metrics, uh, top to bottom. And here we are, still a hyper growth SaaS company, and hoping to expand my team into hopefully maybe 9 or 10 by the summertime next year. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's the history of it.
It's good. The problem is there were so many questions that are in my mind. So let's start with number one. Going back to the retail, the computer sales. You mentioned you have that nerd mentality where you wanted to learn and all that. Generally speaking, that nerd mentality doesn't come with the sales mentality.
No, I think that was inherited genetically.
Okay, is like any of your parents in sales, or I guess, or grandparents?
Yeah, my dad, my father was a very high-end sales method trainer.
Okay.
So he did a whole lot of work with companies like Toshiba, Okidata back then, and would just do like mass sales training and sales professionalism services to large business.
Okay. And we noticed a pattern, right, early on. Not the pattern that you think. The pattern that I noticed is that once you get laid off, you think in your head's like, what's interesting to me? And then you go attack that and find a job there. So
Very true.
how a lot of people don't understand or don't know what is interesting to them. All they think was like, I need to find the next job, especially when they're laid off. How were you able to define or get clarity on what is interesting to you, and then actually find a job in what is interesting to you?
Well, I mean, the tech was always interesting, even before I started working at Computer City. I just loved computers. I loved hardware. I loved making it go. I loved it when I built the box and then I'd get the Windows noise. You know, the Windows 95 chime would work, and I'd click stuff and it would keep working and not give me a blue screen. And I just thought I was the greatest thing on earth. So just having, how did it go? I think, what was the I'm trying to remember how I looked for a job. I think it was Job Shark back then, might have been one of the really early websites.
Never heard of it.
And yeah, like this is like way back in the early 2000s, late 90s, where you could just find these job postings. And I submitted my resume to this company called Maricel. It said they were, you know, an international billion-dollar computer distributor. And I got a call back in about 20 minutes. And the reason why they called me back so quickly was because I had computer retail experience, which was super rare. So for them to bring on a guy that knows customer service in retail, knows technology on the ground level, and just kind of have a natural aptitude for people, and which means sales, got the job in about 3 weeks. And yeah, just kind of stumbled across that, right? And then while I was there, learning about all these vendors, all these manufacturers and developers that would come into the office and Logitech would come in and drop brand new mice and keyboards on, 100 sales reps' desks and go, here, have this, please talk about Logitech, right? Or Microsoft would come in and hand us full-on boxed copies of Office 2003, maybe it might have been 2000, I forget. Just coming in and giving us stuff, right? I'm like, it was mind blowing to me. So when my time in distribution ended because we got bought out, I was like, I need to know more about these vendors, these technology creators, and where they're coming from and whatnot. And then I learned there's these different tiers of vendors. There's like, your IBM and Compaq, the big guys, Packard Bell back then, even AST. Right across the board to these smaller startups like this net integration company that had a private equity backer and a cool technology and a bunch of smart dudes that were looking to take it to market. So it's just amazing how it really worked out, how I took a lot of sales and technical understanding and turned that into a full-on solutions engineering career without even frankly realizing it. I feel like I kind of karate kidded myself, if that makes sense, right? I'm waxing on, waxing off. I don't know why, but it turns out now I can block some kicks.
That's how it works, right? That's real life. Well, in your case, it is real life. Okay. The other pattern, obviously, is that you were bought out. When I worked at Nortel from 2000 to 2008.
Mm.
And then I went back to university. It was an internship. And Nortel went bankrupt right after that. I've been taking credit for it ever since.
Nice.
But your parents, the company you work for is getting bought out. Right? I know a lot of people who are in similar boats today, where some are very resilient and some suffer some hard times. Right? How did you manage? What was your mentality after you got bought out and laid off, in order to survive and find another job?
Uh, I mean, it's a hard question. That's a hard question to answer. I guess, when you get bought out and net new management comes in with their own ideas and their own vision, and there's individuals on the front line or mid-level management that don't necessarily fall into that mold, whatever they might think it is. When you get laid off like that, it's never your fault. It's never a negative to me anyway. My experience was, hey, in some cases, my vision or my position or my role that I played in the company was too much for what they wanted and couldn't find a place to put me in their new vision, right? Which was a positive and a bit of a confirmation that I think I know what I'm doing. I just need to find the right place that has a fit for the skill set that I can bring forward to a company to help them grow and move forward as an individual contributor at the time, right? So when you get bought out, it's really, you have no control, especially if you're an individual contributor. You have no control of what's going to happen around you. You're either going to fit the vision, or you're going to present yourself as somebody that does not fit the vision. I definitely did not fit the vision when Maricel got bought out by Cinex. I was, very young and very, very vocal about not liking what was going on, and I was basically labeled as a troublemaker, and they, more or less kicked me out of the joint in a nice way. Everything is a life lesson, and you just never know how that's going to go until you're in it. It can go in so many ways.
Yeah, and sometimes you're just a number. Like in your case, people knew who you were, and you were a troublemaker. But a lot of times, people are just a number.
Yeah,
And you're managed by number. It's just your number is up, and it's unlucky, and it's time to move on. It has nothing to do with you or your performance.
very true.
In many cases. Okay, and you're one of the few people. I know several people who've moved from sales into sales engineering. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong. The first sales engineering or solution engineering job was at Datto.
No, it was at a company called Level Platforms. I spent 8 years there. My first 4 in sales, and the following 4 in sales engineering.
So we were hearing you talk. I can understand why you moved from sales to sales engineering. You sound like a sales engineer more than you sound like a. Well, you sound. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. You sound like both, right? So, what was the? How were you able to convince the SE leadership to allow you to move? I don't think it was a hard job, but I'd love to hear your thoughts around that. How were you able to convince them to give you an SE role?
Well, interesting situation in that case, in that we were, of course, an explosively growing SaaS company. There was no solution engineering leadership. The company had technical account managers that reported to the support/success silo within the company. And then you had the sales and go-to-market side of the company, which was very siloed, right? I reported to the VP of sales. I expressed my interest in wanting to do this, and he basically created the role for me. And it was a very special opportunity that he presented for me, and basically created the role specifically for me and me alone, which gave me the opportunity to really discover and understand what sales engineering was without even really having a clue. So I pretty much thrusted myself into it and ended up successful.
How did you know that it was a role?
How did I know it was a role? That's a good question. I don't know. I think because I would do a lot of industry events and meet a lot of people in the space, and maybe I came across sales engineers and realized, wait a minute, that's a thing. And then as I continue to think about it, we actually had sales engineers on the floor in retail back in Computer City back in the 90s. They were called sales engineers. And there was 2 or 3 guys that were really good at it that would help the sales reps. But I ended up bypassing that role and going right to supervisor at the counter in retail at that time,
Right.
if that makes sense. So I guess I had to do it. I'm like, I'm a technical guy that can sell anything. I needed to be a sales engineer. I was never the top sales guy, but I was at least, top 5 out of, 10, right? So never the top sales guy, but man, I love talking about technology and solving problems for the people that we interacted with.
Okay. Okay.
So, but yeah, my full on classified legit sales engineer role would have been at a company called Rapid Fire Tools, which is a network assessment tool set. Um, and then from there, I got the role at Datto, which was a $1 billion disaster recovery company. Actually, it was a company called Autotask first that got bought out by Datto a month after I got the job.
Okay. All right. I'm just the thought that's popping in my mind is most salespeople don't like to rock the boat, right? If things are working, why change it? So if I'm a sales director or VP of sales, and a good salesperson, top 50%, I guess, above average salesperson comes to me and says, you know what, I want to become a solutions engineer instead. Like, how did you present that role to him, and like, why would that VP of sales even say yes?
It took a while. It took constantly telling him that I should do this, and I think my VP at the time, who was an absolutely fantastic leader, was well aware of the principle of putting people in the right place based on their skill sets. And I think he was a big believer of that, and as a good leader was able to recognize what my skill sets were and where they would be better utilized within the company to move the company forward. So I think I laid it out there over months and months and months, and I was like, you should let me do this. I really want to do it. And he finally agreed and built the role for me, built the job description, everything, the pay structure, and I was very successful at it.
So it was an official role, not like, all right, fine, you do the SE stuff for the sales team, but your title is still sales.
No, I took on a whole different title. I was actually called a product sales support manager.
Product sales support.
So yeah, they didn't want to call me a solutions engineer or sales engineer because that would have infringed on the technical account managers, right? In a way that they wouldn't really be able to understand. So in order to keep me reporting under the sales silo and working very closely with the sales reps, way more than the technical account managers, especially for pre-sales opportunities, it just kind of makes sense. So I guess it was a whole lot of harassing of my VP at the time to get him to put me where I felt I belonged.
It's called selling, not harassing, if you don't mind.
Fair enough.
All right, so I'm looking at your LinkedIn, and based on what you've been telling me, you kind of worked in both like VARs and vendors, right? You work at the VAR, vendors would come and dump a bunch of keyboards and stuff, and you have to go sell it. But also in the tech world, like it's according to your LinkedIn, you were working at VARs and vendors, not at the same time, but
no, I've never worked specifically for a VAR or an MSP.
Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding because there's VAR Dynamics, and that might be the name of the
VAR Dynamics was a SaaS service provider to VARs and MSPs. I forgot about that job in business development. Yes.
All right, so how was business development? Great. I'm glad that question came out of that tangent. So how was being a business development engineer?
Well, that was more kind of back to the sales biz dev side as I was because if you look at the LinkedIn, some of those roles were a little short-lived relatively. I think I spent about a year or less at VAR Dynamics in biz development, as well as IT Glue in business development, I believe as a director. And that's the role of basically evangelizing and delivering presentations and traveling US and Canada, 30, 40 airplanes a year and just, going around and collecting leads and representing the company. And, that's what that role was. It was like a glorified sales evangelist role.
Is it on a specific product?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's something I want to point out, that a lot of people talk about business development as in like people who cold call.
No.
companies like IT Glue, for example, or VAR Dynamics, the business development person, they're kind of like you're adjacent to a product manager or product marketing where you have to go out and build
Marketing.
relationships and get leads for the salespeople, but not necessarily cold call. Right? You're
No,
not.
no cold calling. No, no, no. It was a pretty high end role, a very highly sought after role that folks would love. That did
Yeah,
not include any cold calling whatsoever. We were more of an extension of
yeah,
publicity and marketing.
exactly. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that up for folks listening. And I see in your title like channel development director for IT Glue. What is a channel?
It's a tricky question because it really depends on who you ask on what the channel is. So when you ask a vendor like us, what is the channel? The channel is essentially a network of IT service providers, MSPs, and technology vendors, that represent a massive international community that you know synergistically provide solutions through to end businesses. So to me, the channel is I'm a vendor. We develop and sell products and technologies and services to IT service providers. So that's our target channel market, who then take their products and services and wrap their logos, wrap their marketing around it, and then sell it directly to end users in the small to medium business segment. So that's kind of the channel move. In my career, I've never worked with end users since I was in retail. Only IT service providers of all sizes. Some of them multi-$100 million national organizations like Intiva. There's a couple of other ones out there in the States, um,
Yeah,
that do a lot of enterprise and mid-market business of their own. The
yeah,
channel is working with the middleman service providers.
yeah. So there's direct where you talk to the end users. Channel.
Correct.
There's one, two, or three, or I don't know how many people in between you and the end users, and you kind of sell to the channel, who then sells to another
That's
channel
right.
who sells to the end user. I like how. All right, I don't know if this is a good question, but I'll ask it anyways, and feel free to tell me that that's not a good question. I've never enjoyed working with channels. I
Oh,
feel I feel like I can't control what they do. Like I'm further. I like working with the end user because I can ask my questions. There's no one to mess up my deal. There's no one to blame but myself.
hmm.
How is it working with a channel?
Dude, I love it. I couldn't imagine having to sell technical solutions to a banker or an accounting firm or a retail store and trying to sell them on the value of cybersecurity and NIST compliance frameworks and trying to convince them how that's important. In this channel, I get to work exclusively with technology providers. So we speak the same language every single day. That's what
Technically,
I love.
technically, you'd be selling to IT people who work for the bank.
Fair, but IT departments within end users often have a very narrow perspective on the things that are important to them, in their tiny little
Yeah,
universe.
yeah. That's I. So how does having a channel mitigate that?
Well, because I don't have to do it. A. Secondly, if you consider like a managed service provider who may specialize in a particular vertical, like accounting, law, I don't know, car dealerships, they know how to speak the language with their end users. I just have to show them the value of and the amazingness of these bleeding edge and cutting edge automation technologies that are going to, strengthen their business, strengthen their relationships with their clients, enhance the services they provide, increase the revenue they're going to make, and that's the value proposition that my team and I live delivering all day. I don't have to sell the value of cybersecurity to a bank. The
Right.
MSP is going to do that.
Okay, but so the MSP is probably selling your product. I don't know. Like I know MSPs who sell Fortinet, Palo Alto, Checkpoint, Cisco, and the struggle is always how do we get them to sell our stuff?
Mhm.
How do you deal with that situation?
Well, I would say that specifically at ScalePad here, what I love about ScalePad is our value proposition is very unique. There is not a direct competitor that can deliver on the products and solutions and automations and efficiencies that we can deliver for a managed service provider. Not to sound like a sales guy, but it's true. There's no real direct relative comparison that can be done. So that makes my job really fun. So I get to get on the phone and my team gets to get on the phone and talk about how great we are. And these are the amazing things that we do, right down to the technological detail that is proven unique and bleeding edge in the space. And I feel like in my career, that has almost always been the case. When I was working at Level Platforms, the conversations were, what the heck is RMM? What's an MSP? And why do you keep calling me? And why are you telling me that you don't want me to get paid when stuff breaks? I get paid when my customer stuff breaks. That's how I make my living. And I'm trying to tell them, no, that's not how to do it anymore. Right. So it was always like kind of on the cusp of bleeding edge in terms of the value propositions that I've had to bring to the market over the many years I've been doing this. I don't want to be another Fortinet trying to sell into uh, a Palo Alto shop, right? What that's all that is who's going to wine and dine him the most, or who's going to give him the best margin, right? If you're just comparing apples to apples at that point, right? So I think I've enjoyed a lot of success by having a very unique selling and value propositions into the market spaces that we've been targeting.
That makes sense. And by the way, when you say not to sound like a salesperson, I mean, half of our job is sales. So
It is.
maybe we don't want to sound like a salesperson, but I mean, we have to kind of talk about it. And that's an answer. Whether you have competitors or not, there's always some advantages that you have. We need to talk about, like, we don't have competitors, honestly. Not nobody can do exactly what we can do. Some, like, I mean, Palo Alto and Checkpoint and Fortinet, maybe they can, but there's always some differentiators that we can use. Okay, and you sales to SE. Was there? I always ask this question from the other way around. Like, if you go from SE to sales, what was surprising? What did you like? What didn't you like? So I'm curious about your thoughts about moving from sales to SE. Not everything was sunshine and rainbows, I'm assuming. What are some of the struggles you had doing that?
Uh, I don't know, man. To be clear on that, I feel like that move was a relief. Although traditionally a sales guy should be making more money than everyone else if they're good at what they do. You may expect to take a bit of a cut in pay in a way,
Yeah.
but the stress of having a quota over my head every 30 days, the never ending responsibility for the chase, and I mean, it got old. I had been doing the sales side for a very long time, and it was a relief to move into sales engineering because I had the technical chops and understanding and aptitude to deliver on the role, but still get to retain most of the exciting part of the sales cycle. In that, contributing to the closing of the deal is very satisfying, just like closing a deal as the sales guy. So for me, it was a relief. I'll tell you, a friend of mine did the reverse years ago. Like you mentioned, he went from solutions engineering to sales. He loved it because A, he was making more money, and
Yeah.
B, he was just like hustling. Like that was his thing. He loved the hustle, the chase. It made him crazy. So getting out of sales engineering for him and moving into sales was the best thing on earth. For me, it was the opposite. I was tired of the grind, the 24-hour clock, up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Did the deal come through on the 31st of the month? Am I going to hit my number? I couldn't take it anymore. So the only thing that made sense for me was to move into sales engineering, and it's a perfect mix.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned this. I don't know if you're aware, but they shifted me out of sales engineering and into sales. And
How
as
do you
much as
feel?
I don't enjoy sales, like
Mm.
I enjoy aspects of it, but I don't enjoy the aspects that you're talking about. Although I never stay up to 2 o'clock to wait for the deal to come in because past
Well, you're not
5.
working hard enough. No, I'm
Well,
kidding.
past 5, my customers are not going to send the PO. Right? If it's 5 o'clock and they haven't sent it, they're not going to send it, even if I
Yeah,
stay up to 2 o'clock. Uh, but right now, like, I love sales engineering. Like, my passion is sales engineering.
me too.
I want to become an SE leader somewhere, and I can't do it within my company potentially. The only way I can do it is maybe move to a different company, and the only way to do that is to go as an individual contributor, then go work my way up. Now, I'm having a hard time just thinking about that because I can't imagine like letting go of the control that I have today. Having a salesperson tell me what to do, and maybe being like, because my industry, we're usually paired 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 with salespeople. I can't imagine being tied to a bad salesperson. Like, so I understand where you're coming from. I wish I could go back to sales engineering. It would be easier, but I've never been a control freak except for now. So
I
it's
hear
interesting
you.
what you say.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that move from like an individual contributor to management, I mean, for me, I think it was just incredible timing. The CEO of ScalePad is a near and dear friend of mine. I've worked with him over multiple companies over the years, and what was happening where I was currently working, I didn't like, and it was amazing timing. And I was brought in as a senior solutions engineer, and it didn't take long for me to realize that literally everything I learned in the 6 years at Datto as a senior solutions engineer, I was able to build upon and make my own and actually create a department from nothing and hire a team from nothing. I showed my current executive leadership team that I had some lofty plans and goals, and the company continues to grow as it is. These are some of the things I would like to do, and they were in full agreement, because I'll tell you, my VP of sales right now does not have any experience running a solutions engineering department. But I came in as a guy with a whole lot of solutions engineering experience. Turns out I had the know-how and the mission, and really the drive to build a team from scratch, and proved it, and then eventually got promoted to an actual manager.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just taking notes here.
It's not all it's cracked up to be, I can tell you that.
You never learn until you try, right?
That's absolutely true.
I really want to try. So as a salesperson, and right now, like, you're an SE leader, one pet peeve of mine is seeing salespeople do their own demos. And I talk to many sales leaders who tell me about, we don't need an SE. Salespeople do the demos here. Right? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, it's interesting because I've actually had I had to make some recent decisions around this exact topic. So when I came into the company, our product stack was actually not really all that complicated. And I was kind of wondering why they need sales engineers to begin with, when it looks like pretty much any sales guy could demo this product. And it wasn't until that we actually made like 4 acquisitions in 2023 alone, where our product stack reached a very deep level of sophistication relative to where we were a year ago. Now, although I am somewhat mostly against sales reps doing their own demos, because you don't want them to kind of screw it up or half-ass it, if you will, or get lost in the weeds and then end up having to go get a solutions engineer anyway, and all they did was just delay their sales cycle and potentially the opportunity. So I've kind of been a proponent of them not running their demos. Now, here's the interesting thing. We recently hired a new leader from Microsoft. And one of the things he mentioned to me that was interesting is that anybody within the company has to know 365. They have to know 365 bare minimum, right? You got to be able to talk about it, know all the licensing, know everything there is to know about that one core product. Meanwhile, at the same time, I'm getting reps coming up to me saying they want to do their own demos. They want access to the demo environment. They want to do their own demos. And up until recently, I said no. But I've decided to change that, actually. And I feel now, and this is literally, Ramsey, over the last couple of weeks, since the last time we spoke, actually, that I now want them to do I want them to do product demos for the one core product. So if they can do a demo for the core product that really is not that complicated to begin with, by all means, go ahead. Because what it's going to do is set up my team down the road for better scalability, when we're going to be more reserved for the more complex opportunities that might involve traversing more than the core product and increasing that complexity of the exchange with the prospect. Then, you know what? By all means. And if they're coming to me saying, I think I can do my own demos, you know what? I'm not going to stop you anymore. But if I spot check that and I go back and I find out they're not doing it the way I want them to, because I told them, hey, I'm going to give you access, but I'm holding you accountable. Here's a recording of one of my best demos. Make sure you learn how to do that. And if I spot check you and you're not doing that, you're going to lose it. So make sure you learn it. Put in the time and effort. If you want to do your own demos, you better at least be able to do about 10% of the work that my team and I does when we get on the phone, right? So it's a mixed bag. It depends, frankly. But in the case here at ScalePad, you know what? I'm all for it now. You guys want to do your own demo? Go ahead. If you think you can close that deal, I don't want to get in your way. Call up my team or I when you need some cover support.
Okay. So, I have several thoughts around that. You mentioned you spot check them.
I'm gonna. I told him if I go spot check it and it turns out that you're not delivering to a standard that I expect, they're going to be accountable for that.
Could you instead certify them?
I actually have a sort of a self-directed knowledge level tracking system that I devised for my team. Sales leadership has actually asked me to come up with something similar for their sales reps.
Okay. And how customized are these demos that they're doing for the core product?
They're not. Listen, this is not enterprise, right?
So,
this is SMB.
Would it be easier to just send a demo via recording, like your best demo?
Yes, sometimes. But the reps, when they're smart, they don't want to release control of the sale or the engagement with their prospect. They'd rather keep them on the phone so that they can close them instead of relinquishing control of that engagement to a video.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess that's a debate that we might have to have at some point. Because in my mind, if I send a video to my customer, sure, I'm relinquishing some control, but I'm also allowing the customer to make the decision of whether they want to talk to me or not. Because if it's not useful to them, then maybe we shouldn't have this conversation.
I understand that. But the thing that's most important in this very specific SMB channel market is scale. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is volume and scale. So if I can free up cycles of my team and make them available for other medium or larger opportunities, because now the reps are kind of delivering on their own, sort of core demo, it makes sense.
I agree with that, but I'm saying we can even scale the sales team by just sending a video.
You tell them that. You tell them they can be replaced with a video.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think I would be replacing them with the video. We're freeing them up to talk to video qualified leads, right? Someone. Right?
It sounds a lot easier than it is in the reality.
I'm backseat quarterbacking, right? I'm from afar saying something. So it sounds like you've tried something similar. Maybe not the same thing.
Listen, I just had my team produce 12 5- and 2-minute videos of our products for the sales to use as tools.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes, right? Some of them are blasting it out all over the place. Some of them are waiting to show it to them until, they don't want to jump on a one-to-one live.
Yeah. Okay. I would love to hear the results for that.
Me too. I can't wait. I'd like to know how many times a 5-minute demo closed the deal instead of the rep.
For the 5-minute demo closes the deal. I think it's just after watching the 5-minute demo, if the customer is more interested, now you have a better chance of the salesperson closing the deal through more in-depth conversations. But that's, again, my opinion, someone who doesn't work in the industry and looking from the outside in with no knowledge. Right?
Yeah,
I'm qualifying myself right here. I'm just saying that's not how I see it, and I might be wrong. I've been wrong more than once.
I get that there's a number of different schools of thought around it. And frankly, at the end of the day, especially this day and age, in terms of what like the buyer journey looks like, it's got to be a little bit of everything. Yeah. It's everything. You got to have one-on-ones, one-to-manys, videos, on-demand, streaming, webinars, a little bit of every possible medium and method and platform to win.
Especially with SMBs, where you're not
100%.
Enterprise. I'm building relationships. I have the same customers over and over. I just took them out to lunch. They told me what's going on with them. They gave me some news, some good, some bad. So with SMB, it's the more touches, right?
Yeah, man.
Or non-annoying touches, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you, the model that you're used to scares the crap out of me. I feel like that would be a nightmare for me. In that because I don't want to wait a year to close or lose a multi-million-dollar deal. That does not sound like fun.
Yeah, well, it's true. The trick is, and that's a conversation we have all the time, is to have more than one multi-million-dollar deal in the funnel that close at
Sure.
different times, right?
Just like SMB, that's true.
Exactly.
You top fill the funnel and more comes out at the bottom.
Exactly. So you can't. The thing is about enterprise is you can't just have one
No.
customer. You're gonna have to like it's building relationships with multiple customers and working your way through that, and having multiple deals in the funnel. One that I opened last year that's going to close this year. One,
Wow.
well, for me, it's not like that specifically. I could have like I had a deal that closed in 6 months, right? So it's not as bad. It just closed today. So,
If the deal doesn't close in one call, it's too long. No, I'm kidding. I'm
yeah,
being
well,
facetious, but
good luck with that. I've actually closed the deal with one call and never heard back from the customer. Right? It was a very small deal. Anyways, so okay. What? So how was it like? You've been acquired and let go. How has it been on the other side right now, where your company is acquiring?
oh man, so much fun, dude. I couldn't ask for anything more exciting. We went from call it a 1-2 trick pony back when I started in October last year. Fantastic technologies, fantastic products used by tens of thousands of service providers across the globe. And then fast forward to earlier this year, the first half of the year, we made 3 full-on acquisitions. And we are now went from a product to a multi-product portfolio. So we are now essentially a portfolio company. We actually made another acquisition about a month ago. So we now have 6 products that are completely separate, independent, and 3 services across our stack. And to be clear, those acquisitions, they weren't the biggest companies, right? We're talking about like 15, 20 employee companies, but with killer known technologies that happen to have a very, very synergistic relationship across the stack, right? So when we made the merge, when we made the acquisitions, it was like, oh, like when I heard it, I was like, oh, whoa, I get it. Like I connected the dots in 10 seconds going, that makes so much sense. I can't believe I didn't think of it. And that's why I'm not the founder, because it's the founder that thinks of that sort of stuff, right? And you look at it and you go, man, this makes a lot of sense from like a 10,000-foot technological perspective. But now being inside of that and figuring out how we then adopt best practices that they may do from like a process perspective to integrating the development teams into the umbrella to how do I get my team trained up on a whole bunch of new products quick enough, because what's going to happen is the sales guys want to go sell it, so the demand and the volume goes up. And the way the company was before acquisition, they didn't have the personnel or the cycles to facilitate the activity that they would suddenly get by coming under the ScalePad umbrella, right? It's like, oh, well, now we've got 15, 20 sales guys that are now cross-selling these new products into their existing accounts, right? So I needed to build the process for getting my guys trained up so that they would have enough of the appropriate resources to deliver on the sales journey for our prospects and for our customers. So from a solutions engineering management perspective, very exciting and very difficult to integrate. Not just the like, because I was literally scrambling around going, hey, I got to get my guys access to this tool. Hey, now I got to get my guys access to this other tool. Like, and they're already talking about it in sales meetings and stuff, right? And I'm like, we haven't even touched it yet as solutions engineers, and we got sales guys chomping at the bit wanting to go start selling it, right? Like good sales guys, they want to sell what's on the truck, right? So interesting challenge, you could say. Interesting balance of having executive leadership kind of slow down a little so that guys like me in mid-level can get our ducks in a row and get the process lined up and trackable,
Yep.
and most importantly, make it so that my guys, when they get on the phone, they know what they're talking about because they had the exposure before it was able to be sold, right? So wild, wild times. And the new acquisition we just made, they're actually on purpose taking it a lot slower. They're like, okay, we're not going to unleash this new one to the sales teams quite yet until at least Jeff has his team trained up and ready to go before they unleash the sales guys.
So, well, Jeff, here's my problem. I have a million more questions, but we're almost at the top of the hour. So it's your fault for having so much information that I want to talk about. But it's time to move on to the not so firearm. Hopefully, we can do another session.
I'd love to
dig deep into your management experience and going through all that, because that seems like a whole story that we need to dig into. All right. So the not so firearm. These are the same 4 questions I ask almost every guest, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Starting with number 1, which I think you already answered it several times, but what is it that you love about sales engineering, being a solution engineer manager?
Work-life balance. Wait, did you say manager or solutions engineer?
Which one do you want to answer?
Okay, well, being a solutions engineer, the best thing about it is the work-life balance, right? The amount of money you get paid, leveraging your skill set, and being able to give yourself a good work-life balance relative to like a hardcore sales guy. That to me is the best part.
Okay. SE.
As an SE manager, the best part is actually getting the chance to take what I know and share it with others and give young, fresh solutions engineers, sales engineers some direction and method and opportunity to grow their careers as solutions engineers. Very satisfying.
Question number 2. This is a question that it's only for you. Why do you have 3 computers?
Why do I have 3 computers? Well, because I'm a nerd, man. I like hardware. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on back there behind me, but that's my dual gaming station.
Cool. That was not related, but I've been wanting to ask you that since we started. Question number 2. What do you consider is your superpower?
My superpower is having a sales discussion under the guise of a technical discussion.
Nice. I like that. All right. Question number 3. By the way, this is a not so firearm, so if you want to talk a little bit, if you want to elaborate, feel free. If you want to keep it like this, I'm fine. Is there a book or resource you would recommend, or what book or resource do you give to your sales engineers to read when they start?
Well, I'll actually, I made the audio just got weird. A book called A Great Demo. Have you heard of it? I actually suggested it. I don't know why the audio is so strange. Hopefully it's coming through okay. A book called A Great Demo. I actually suggested it during my interview process. So when I was interviewing new SEs, I suggested they take a look at it if they intend to prepare for the next step, which would have been to deliver a demo of a product to myself and my executive leadership team.
Okay, nice. That's a good one. The last question of the not so firearm: is there a habit you're working on today to improve in your personal or professional life?
What was the first part of that?
Is there a habit?
A what?
A habit.
Oh, a habit.
Yeah.
I think for me today, I need to do more work in kind of discovering my leadership style. There's a multitude of different leadership approaches like delegating, directing, dictating, etc. I need to do more work on understanding exactly what my leadership style is, and I'm tending to lean towards leading by example because I'm literally in the trenches with my team every day, which I love, and I'll hopefully never let it go. So yeah, I think that for me is key moving forward, is defining my actual management style as I continue to grow in a leadership role.
Have you read Extreme Leadership by Jocko Willink?
No.
I would recommend that. It's not about leadership styles, it's just about leadership in general. And I recommend it to anybody who's in leadership.
Okay.
You know Jocko Willink?
Sounds familiar.
He's a former Navy SEAL. He's now the CEO of Echelon Front, and he teaches leadership.
I think I've seen that guy present.
Yeah, he's scary. And if you listen to the audiobook, it's him talking.
Okay.
And one of his buddies. So it's an intense few hours. All right, Jeff, we're at the end of the show. Was there a question you were hoping I was going to ask you, but I did not?
No, not at all. I feel like we covered a lot of great stuff here, and I definitely appreciate spending time with you, man, and being invited to your show here.
hey man, I had fun, and I'm looking forward to the next one to ask you about your management and leadership experiences. If people want to connect with you, where can they do that?
LinkedIn's the best bet.
Awesome. Jeff, thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
My pleasure, sir. Have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch. Sure.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Jeff, for coming on. Again, Happy New Year. I hope you have a great day, week, month, year, life, basically. So, what was your takeaway from this call? I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you share with me what is it that you liked. With that, I'm signing off.